A Girl on Fire, A Mockingjay, and A Fight to the Death, but I was a little underwhelmed. Was it the book or the movie? Let's find out. Welcome to the Christy Grace Scarlet Pen channel. I am an author, creativity chaser, and book lover. Today I'm doing another installment of Book versus Movie, where I talk about the differences between a movie and the book that it was based on. Today I'm tackling The Hunger Games. I watched this movie when it came out, and a few years after it came out. Hang on, when did I watch the movie? It was not something I was interested to watch or find out about. I'm not gonna lie. It was not something that I found interesting. Making kids fight to the death in an arena for no reason was a pretty awful idea. However, now, almost 10 years since the movie came out, and I'm finally reading the book. I will be continuing the series because I want to review them all as well, because it's a classic book that I should have been reading because everyone, you know, loved it and whatever. And so I will do that as well at some point, but for now, I just compared the first book to the first movie. One of them was pretty underwhelming. They were both relatively different, actually, I would say. There was some pretty big differences in the book and the movie. They stuck to the main plot, so that was fine. Like, the main plot was there. They even actually added small things that I thought maybe they would ignore. Before I go any further, I just want to warn you that this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, just be aware. There were some things which they added into the movie, which I was surprised that they actually included. Things that were like small details, like Prim has a cat, and they did include that, and there was like a, you know, a bad relationship between Katniss and this cat. They included that in like a 30-second scene. So there was some things that they did include that I was surprised. There was things that the movie added that wasn't in the book, but for the most part, they removed a lot of the book for the film. Some of that was for condensing's sake. I understand you've got a time limit when it comes to a movie. There are only certain things that you can show. The movie felt very short and sharp, and the book felt a little bit more relaxed and fleshed out. The haste of the film actually gave me a disjointed feeling. I felt like things were glossed over too much or gone too far. They went too fast through certain scenes. And one of the big complaints that I had was that I felt the first hour was based on the reaping or being called up to be in the Hunger Games, and then that before the Hunger Games bit, and then the second hour was really the games themselves. I feel like they spent too much time in that first hour on the before. I think if they were gonna condense anywhere, they should have condensed those scenes and not made that so long, because they rushed through it anyway. And then I think that if they'd spent more time on the games themselves, they would have had more opportunity to delve into some of those aspects of the games, because I think that by quickening it up and speeding it up and condensing it the way they did, you lost a lot of the severity of their wounds. In the book, you actually saw how severe and life-threatening their wound, the dehydration, the elements, the actual running for your lives, that was a lot more clear and it was a lot more severe in the book, and there was a lot more brutality. It wasn't done in such a gory, graphic way where it was unbearable in the book, but the movie glossed over those for sure. There was the severity of Katniss's wounds and Peter's wounds, and I was frustrated because some of that condensing meant that they couldn't delve into certain aspects where I think that they should have. So for me, I think they had their focus more on getting as much of the book into the movie as possible instead of the focus in the right places. The emphasis for me was in the wrong spot. They removed and didn't include some of the key moments for me. Things like small moments between Katniss and Peter, or Katniss and Gale, or Katniss and everybody. Key moments, especially with Katniss and Peter, were not included, and I'm assuming for the sake of time, but by not including those aspects, you lose a lot of the strategy that went behind the star-crossed lovers, which is essentially what was supposed to be able to keep them alive. But because we didn't zoom in on that, we didn't focus on a lot of that, we didn't know about this planning, it felt really stiff. it felt like it didn't really contribute at all to the reason that they're alive. You lost a lot of the characters. There wasn't, for me, the acting was really not great because there was a lot of depth, emotional depth to these characters in the book. But because you missed some of those key moments between these characters, like for example, in the book, Katniss finds out that Peter says he's had a crush on her forever and she's actually at the games. When that happens in the book, the whole of the capital, the districts everywhere see her reaction. And that was a key moment for me. It was showing everybody that not only she didn't know, but she was surprised, and it was somewhere that they could build off of. But when you don't do that and you take that out, where it wasn't in the movie where her reaction was filmed, we the audience sort of saw a reaction, but there was key moments like that that weren't included, which set the stones. It gave you a lot of good setup. The characters also, I don't know if this was the acting or the feel of the movie in general, they lost a lot of their personality. In the book, Katniss was a lot more of a smartass. She was a bit quicker. You had Gale, and her relationship was a little bit more partner as opposed to friendly rival. And Peter came across as a lot more kind and gentle just because he was that way. Whereas in the film, I feel like Peter's character came across a little bit more brutal. He looked out for just himself, and he had moments of being the Peter from the book, but in doing things like some of the changes they made when Katniss is up in the tree and she hears Peter with the career tributes down below, like she assumes that Peter is joined them to hunt her down, whereas in the movie he outright says she went that way, and I think that because of that, it made him seem a little bit more like he was just interested in self-preservation instead of self-preservation and making sure that she was okay, because later he does save her like he does in the book from some of the other careers, but it didn't come across as in the same way because you miss that gentleness, you miss that kindness, and it's difficult for him to be in this situation. So you lost some of the nuances, not just with characters, but with the story, especially when you take out some of those pivotal moments. A good point for the movie, though, was that they were able to show emotion in a really raw way, particularly with the very beginning of the movie with the Reaping and Prim and Katniss volunteering in her sister's place. So when I read that in the book, it didn't, invoke so much emotion from me, but watching it was way more impacting. So that was a plus for some moments. Some moments weren't, again, they weren't given enough depth and time throughout the movie for it to be as impacting. When it's up to the two of them, Katniss and Peter, and they say, surprise, now you have to only have one victor, and they end up, potentially eating the berries, so there would be none. When you had more of that setup of the, star-crossed lovers, there was more room for that to be more impacting. Whereas in the movie, I didn't feel like that was very impacting. In the book, it was a really big moment, whereas in the movie, it fell flat. It didn't feel very authentic. It was rushed. Again, a lot of it was condensed. I think that more focus on the aftermath would have been interesting. They glossed over that so much. It was 1 to 2 minutes of this aftermath after the games, whereas in the book, again, you missed some of the severity of their injuries, but there was very dramatic moments, Katniss being pulled away from Peter and not sure if he's going to live or die, and that was a really, really amazing, intense, dramatic moment where it revealed that potentially she does have feelings for Peter, but we missed that in the film. We didn't do that in the film, and it was really clear that she just has no feelings for him whatsoever. However, in the book, she's already started to develop these really deep feelings of caring for Peter. In the film, it just looked like she was impassive. She doesn't care really that much. I mean, she couldn't care less whether he, survived or lived or died. And it's actually not that way in the book. So I feel like we missed a lot of that, which was really a shame because the book itself was actually really good. As with most books and movies, I find there was extra details in the book that you got that you didn't get in the movie. Part of that was the book was in first person and there's no way to first person provide that information in terms of a film, unless you were to do a narration, which it didn't need. And I think that it was really cool to have the Mockingjay, being able to hear that and seeing some of that was really cool. Overall, if you couldn't already tell by now, I preferred the book to the movie. I think it had a much more solid pace. I think it was able to develop the characters more. There was a more emotional depth. They had more personality. There wasn't such a fast, hurried, rushed feel. Overall, the information that we got was easier to digest and develop. They didn't go into so much detail for things they could have. So, for example, the reason why there are so many of your names in the bowl to be picked at the reaping, they sort of glossed over those points, so you sort of missed the understanding unless you read the book. But that happens with every book to movie, I think. But it was fun to be able to get that information as a backup. It wasn't as bad as, if you've seen my Blade Runner review, it wasn't as bad as that one. Go check that video out if you wanted to. You still missed some key aspects, and that was a shame. The focus and the emphasis were in the wrong places for me. Have you read the book and seen the movie, and do you agree with me or disagree? Let me know in the comments and we'll debate about which one was better. You can also check out my other book to movie videos. It is in a playlist. I will be doing a complete Hunger Games trilogy review soon, so keep an eye out for that. I'll see you guys in the adventures.